early. Also heeding to cause to have members walk into the chambers. The quorum bell continues to ring. It has been ringing for 2 minutes, give or take. And the purpose of that is to allow members to come into the chambers. And there were Shelley signals that quorum has been achieved. I will hand you over so that you can follow these proceedings courtesy of PBU and KBC. Good morning.
Order, members, order. Now you can take your seats. We have the required quorum and therefore business will begin. And honorable members, the systems are faulty, so we'll see ways of trying to make sure that business will progress unhindered. But in the meantime, I am informed that the systems will be coming up quite soon. So for the time being, we will organize other means of communications.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Under this particular one, we have the member for Nakuru Town East, Honorable Gikaria. Seems to be absent. So we'll move to the next order.
Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Under that particular order, we do not seem to have statements, so we will quickly move to the questions. And all the questions are ordinary this morning. So we'll start with the member for Trans Nzoia County, Honorable Janet Nangabo. Sorry, honorable members, I am informed the honorable member had requested for deferment of that particular question. The member is bereaved following passing of a relative, and therefore we will put it to the next available and convenient time for both the member and the House. So let's go to the member for Baringo Central, Honorable Kandie. Honorable Kandie, probably you need to move to the dispatch box. The dispatch box is this one in front here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 275, 2019. And the question goes to the Minister for Interior, Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Coordination. Is the Cabinet Secretary aware that there are more than 10 roadblocks manning the Nairobi-Nakuru highway, which end up disrupting traffic flows and greatly inconvenience motorists? Second, what measures is the ministry is putting in place to ensure that the traffic flow is enhanced during the along the Nairobi-Nakuru highway, and the number of roadblocks is reduced?
Very well. That particular one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. Next is the member for Rongo, Honorable Abur.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 276 of 2019. My question is directed to the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Planning. Question number 1. Is the Cabinet Secretary aware that the contractor's funds retained at the District Treasury of the former Kisumu East District, which is ordinarily payable upon expiry of the defects liability period, popularly referred to as retention money, for many projects undertaken in the area, cannot be traced nor accounted for? Thus, most contractors who have undertaken government projects in the said area are yet to be paid the outstanding balances. Number 2, when is the ministry going to settle these balances to the affected contractors? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, even before I refer it to any committee, the question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning. And I must commend that particular member, honorable members, because as you see, he's a techno-savvy member. He actually read his question out of his phone, which is the direction we are headed to. We are determined to make this parliament a paperless parliament. So that is a real good effort by that honorable member. Let's have the next member, that is Honorable Bishop Kawira Mwangaza, member for Meru, at large. You will still have to come closer to the dispatch box.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. My question goes to the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries, and Irrigation. Is the Cabinet Secretary aware that the construction of Kingerwa Irrigation Project in Tigania, Meru County, has stalled since 2016? What measures is the ministry putting in place to ensure that the said project is completed in time, and by when will this be done? Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Very well. That will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock. And Honorable Bishop Kawira, next time you should be able to read it from your phone, or at least the gadget that is provided for you there. And that you can also shift, let it all the way to the church that you lead. Make it as paperless as possible. Well, let's proceed to before we proceed to the next order, I noticed that Honorable Kikaria was actually in the house, but I couldn't trace him because of the issue of gadgets in the house that were not working. So I therefore will give him an opportunity to ask his petition. I am aware that he was already in the house, but because I could not be able to, pinpoint him exactly from where I am. Yes, and also he's a member from Nakuru Town East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your indulgence. I, the undersigned, on behalf of the residents of Nakuru County, draw the attention of the House to the following. That on the 21st October 2017, a plane belonging to Flex Air Charter crashed in Lake Nakuru, claiming the lives of 5 passengers on board. That whereas the bodies of 3 passengers were recovered, the bodies of 2 persons, namely John Mapozi and Mr. Sam Gitau, are still missing, causing undue distress to the affected family members who have never been able to give their loved ones a befitting send-off. 3, that there has been lack of official communication from the National Disaster Management Unit and other government agencies to these families on the recovery status of the 2 bodies and on the matters of compensation to the affected families. 4, that the efforts to have these issues addressed by the Disaster Management Unit have not borne any fruits. 5, that the issue in respect of which this petition is made are not pending before any court of law, constitutional or legal body. Therefore, your humble petitioner prays that the National Assembly, through the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing, intervenes intervene to have the Ministry of Transport, Public Works and Housing and other relevant agencies inquire into this matter and establish the cause of death. 2, recommends that the affected families be duly compensated for their loss of their loved ones. And 3, make any other recommendations that deem fit in the circumstances of the petitioner. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. This being a petition, if there is a member or two who would want to speak to it, I would be happy to give them that opportunity. And since I'm not able to see the names of members who are interested here, probably we will try the older method of standing from where you are and now actually catching the eye of the speaker. We will try what used to happen in the 9th, 10th, and the previous parliaments before this technology came into place. I see no member who is interested to speak to this particular one, so we'll go to the next order.
Order number 8, motion. Development and implementation of a curriculum for training students and pupils in schools on road safety.
That is a motion by Honorable Sylvanus Osoro.
Thank you.
I can see he's ready.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So proceed and move it, please.
Concerned that available reports indicate that on average, road traffic accidents.
You move it because don't move it.
Okay, sorry.
You want to move the motion.
Sorry, Mr.
Yes.
Honorable Speaker. I rise to move the
Correct.
motion.
You are now in order. Proceed.
That concerned that available reports indicate that on average, road traffic accidents in the country cause an estimated 3,000 deaths, with many other victims injured and maimed as a result, placing Kenya among the countries with the highest road carnage globally. Further concerned that it is estimated that the cost to the economy from the road traffic accidents is in excess of 300 billion shillings annually, according to the National Transport Safety Authority, Road Safety Status Report 2015. And aware that legislation and policy of the public who can benefit from the road safety education, this House resolves that the national government urgently develops and implements a mandatory and examinable curriculum for training of students and pupils in primary and secondary schools on road safety. Honorable Speaker, I nominate or rather propose Honorable Babu Owino to second the motion.
Are you through? That was fairly short. So let's have Honorable Babu to second. You are not listening. Honorable Babu, please come to the dispatch box.
To be drivers at the level of the primary and secondary education. This is secondary schools. This is as a result of, Mr. Speaker, we find that in our driving schools, we only take a maximum of 2 weeks. Let me just talk about it, please.
What is it, Honorable Wario? You come to the dispatch box, please. If it is
because there's confusion. No.
Order, Honorable Babu. Now you resume your seat because we cannot have two members standing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, have you heard Mheshimiwa Babu Ocheng saying, Babu Owino saying, there are devilish activities going on in this house?
That is, unless he can substantiate, he will have to withdraw and apologize
to the House
very profusely. Because in this house we have sheikhs like Honorable Ariyo.
Indeed, yes.
And they would very easily be interested in casting any demon that... So, Honorable Babu Ocheng, there are some ones which
Mr.
you throw
Speaker,
left and right.
Babu Owino. I don't know who you are
Babu
addressing.
Owino, sorry. Babu Owino.
Yes.
Honorable Babu Owino, member for Embakasi East.
or JKIA MP.
Yes. So what would you want to really withdraw this one?
Mr. Speaker, I think mentioning the word devil is parliamentary because there is the devil and God, even in church, Mr. Speaker. Saying that there is some of the demonic activities, Mr. Speaker,
you know,
but you can't force me to withdraw something which is in order.
Honorable Ching, you are doing a very, I mean, Babu Awino, you are doing actually a very honorable duty to this House by seconding a motion. Please do not get into, these other side shows.
Mr. Speaker, when I talk about the devil,
withdraw that one.
Is it a parliamentary language
let's
or
forget
not?
about the devil for the time being. Let's work on the seconding. Now, withdraw that particular bit so that there is no excitement.
Mr. Speaker.
Perfect, Honorable Awino.
You can't apologize for not making a mistake, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, you are now in order. Proceed, please. What is your point of order again? You know that one is not working. Order Ochieng, Awino, sorry, I have a major issue today.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Babu Awino is my friend. I didn't want to interrupt him, but you see, when he seconded the motion on the fact that he's talking about driving being introduced at the primary school. No, he was seconding, and yes, the Hansard can check on me on that. Minority leader, relax. You are not listening. So he said. My point of order is that, Honorable Speaker, is he in order to say, because it has to be relevant to the motion. So I would ask if he could restart again, Honorable Speaker.
But you didn't give him the time to, develop his seconding. So let's give him an opportunity. Now you are the one actually who is not in order.
No, Mr. Speaker. I'm never out of order. I listen, and the Hansard can check on me on that. Yes, Honorable Speaker.
Yeah, so let's have Honorable Babu Awino.
Mr. Speaker, yeah. we can now confirm that what I was saying is true, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the motion on development and implementation of a curriculum for training students and pupils in schools on road safety. Mr. Speaker, we find that...
What is it, honorable members? Really, we cannot be excited about... you are really interrupting the honorable member. You are not
Mr.
giving
Speaker,
me an opportunity to develop.
This is very sad, Mr. Speaker.
What is it? What is it? Well, luckily, I can see you are giving opportunity to Honorable Awino to develop his case better by sitting once in a while to develop his, Yeah, so let's hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is not within my intention to interrupt the honorable member. But, Mr. Speaker, orders that are made by the Speaker of this House are not usually made in vain. Mr. Speaker, you've already ordered that the honorable member withdraws and apologizes. The honorable member has indicated he can withdraw, but he cannot apologize.
He did not say that.
Yes. So we need to hear, as members of this House, an apology, an unequivocal apology, so that we can be able to move on, Mr. Speaker.
I had Honorable Awino perfectly. Once he had withdrawn, I did not want to pursue it any further. Now, and even what he said thereafter, in my opinion, did not specifically lead to exactly the same thing he had said earlier. So please allow Honorable Babu Awino to... No, let's proceed, honorable members.
Mr. Speaker will not apologize.
What?
He will not apologize. For what?
He will not.
For what, Mr. Speaker?
Now you know, Honorable Awino.
I've withdrawn, but I've not apologized.
You understand that?
Why do I need to apologize? Why must you force me to apologize?
Now
I have the free will, even in the Bible.
Now,
even when you go to heaven, you are given the will to choose.
Honorable
Mr. Speaker, I have the free will to choose whether to apologize or not to, and I choose not to.
You see, Honorable Babu Awino, I'd given you an opportunity to withdraw, and you did. and I expected an apology for what you said. You know, it is not, I mean, it is not something you can substantiate. Now that you couldn't substantiate, and I had not really bothered to look for the second issue that I was trying to pursue, but you yourself get into the trap, so you will have to apologize.
But Mr. Speaker,
you will have to apologize.
Rationally speaking, using the word devil is parliamentary.
No, I do not want the description of that for now. You have a very, you
Mr.
really
Speaker,
have yes.
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw.
And apologize.
Thank you. But you've said it.
Anyway, proceed, Honorable Awino.
Thank you, Mr.
Please,
Speaker.
and don't get into side issues anymore.
Thank
Please.
you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion, to second the motion on the development and implementation of curriculum for training students and pupils in schools on road safety. Mr. Speaker, most road accidents in our nation are caused by careless driving. And this is as a result of some of the drivers who learned driving through backdoor methods, or rather learned driving through the roadside. You find that, Mr. Speaker, in our society, the drivers that we bring up, even in the so-called TAs, in our areas, these are people who are going on a squad basis. Squad basis means, Mr. Speaker, that a trained driver, or rather a semi-trained driver, drives a matatu, and on reaching a particular stage, he leaves it for another person to take over. So most of the people in our society, Mr. Speaker, they get trained on such basis. We find that due to that, there are so many accidents caused, deaths that are registered on our roads are so many because of our carelessness, because of the strict rules that we never followed, Mr. Speaker. I therefore propose that when such training, the driving school is brought to our pupils, probably at the primary level, the learners, they just do the theory. Then at the secondary level, it is a practical lesson, Mr. Speaker. With that, we can be growing up knowing, because through experience and through continuous studying of these roads, rules and regulations, it will enable us, Mr. Speaker, to at least follow them in the foreseeable future and minimize such road accidents. Otherwise, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You second? You have to...
I do, with all my body parts, Mr. Speaker.
You know, the one you are saying you do is not perfect. That is for marriage. I say you second.
I started by saying I second, Mr. Speaker, and I finished by saying I second.
Okay, order. Order. Take your seat, please. You have finished your work. Honorable members, I propose the question, which is that aware that available reports indicate that on average, road traffic accidents in the country cause an estimated 3,000 deaths, with many other victims injured and maimed as a result, placing Kenya among countries with highest road carnage globally. Further concerned that it is estimated that the cost to the economy from the road traffic accidents is in excess of 300 billion annually, according to the National Transport and Safety Authority, NTSA, Road Safety Status Report of 2015, aware that legislation and policies in place to a large extent address key road safety risk factors, and the challenge is, I beg your pardon, honorable members, I'll have to start again the proposal of the question. So I propose a question, which is that concerned that available reports indicate that on average, road traffic accidents in the country cause an estimate 3,000 deaths, with many other victims injured and maimed as a result, placing Kenya among the countries with the highest road carnage globally. Further concerned that this is estimated to cost the economy from road traffic accidents in excess of 300 billion annually, according to the National Transport Safety Authority, NTSA Road Safety Status Report of 2015, aware that legislations and policies in place to a large extent address the key safety risk factors, and the challenge is in implementation and enforcement, cognizant that the road safety awareness would help in combating road accidents in the country, acknowledging that Section 4.2 of the National Transport and Safety Act mandates the NTSA to develop and implement road safety strategies and facilitate education of members of public in road safety, recognizing that school provides the largest and most concentrated group of members of public who can benefit from the road safety education. This House resolves that the national government urgently develops and implement a mandatory and examinable curriculum for training of students and pupils in primary and secondary schools on road safety. Let's start with the leader of minority.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion, and I'm just concerned that the mover of the motion, a motion that I consider to be very important for the safety of our people, and also even to the extent, to a large extent, going to protect our children who will be educated on matters safety, that did not find so much justice from the mover, who only read the motion and did not even take time to try to persuade the House, Mr. Speaker, to support the motion, even though the motion is self-explanatory, but at times it is important for the mover to put across the point so that members get persuaded and swayed to support the motion. That is a sense of moving the motion. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, I think it is not in doubt that our country is facing a crisis in terms of transport sector, a crisis that is caused by people who blatantly flout the rules and regulations, and people who are supposed to implement the same are also involved in bribe taking and are compromised to a large extent, that the rules that are in place, because this country does not lack the laws, the country does not lack the rules, the country does not lack regulations. The only thing is that those who are charged with the responsibility of implementing and effecting the same are not doing their job or work properly. But Mr. Speaker, the aim of this motion is now to remove, or rather take the debate from the actual implementation to sensitizing and educating the populace, the country, in understanding and appreciating the importance of rules safety on our roads. Mr. Speaker, we are all aware the problems that we face in our roads, starting from what we now call the border borders, where you find even 4 school-going children are carried without helmets and are riding motorcycles and driven at very high speed. Mr. Speaker, this is posing serious danger to not only these children, but even to other road users. And therefore, I think it is important that we start from early stages of life, that we start educating our children on the importance of road safety, to appreciate the road safety, so that they grow up knowing what they need to do. In that case, they will grow up cultured in a manner that would first avoid risky ventures that would pose, or rather ventures that would expose them to risk their lives. But also, more importantly, that they would also not partake to these risky ventures, and to avoid compromising the law enforcement officers. So I think it is important that a curriculum is developed in our schools where training on road safety is made mandatory, even if not examinable, but made mandatory. Just like I remember when we started school, those early years, I know it may not be early to some, probably in this house, but to some it may be very early years. Those times we used to have morning devotions in schools. There was a compulsory Christian lesson in our schools. And that, I think, needs to be done. I don't know whether it is still there, but we used to have a day in a week when we used to pray and just read the Bible and appreciate the Creator. We also need to have such in schools now today, and have a system where our children are taught and trained on road safety. Mr. Speaker, I cannot overemphasize the cost of road accidents in this country, the cost to the economy, the effect it has. Many of us are people, we are all people's representatives, and I'm sure a day would not pass, or if a day passes, a week would not end without a member of parliament here being asked to contribute to medication or medical attention for those who are involved in road accidents. But Mr. Speaker, as I sit down, just before I conclude, I also wanted to talk to law enforcement officers that I think any time that a policy is brought up in this country, it is not seen, it doesn't end up helping solve the problem for which that policy is created. In fact, it is a way of creating an avenue for law enforcement officers to start harassing people, harassing motorists, harassing motorcyclists, and they end up using it as a bribe taking. Recently, Mr. Speaker, remember on Thursday, the cabinet secretary talked about licensing to motorcyclists, the borders. But Mr. Speaker, while that may be a very noble cause, I will tell you it is an avenue, Mr. Speaker. I see it as an avenue of the law enforcement officers to start harassing the borders and start taking bribes from them, and it will not, that policy will not achieve the intended purpose. So, Mr. Speaker, that is why when this House will be debating these proposals that were brought by the Cabinet Secretary, we must look at them holistically. Otherwise, I want to support this motion. What I don't know is how soon the government, because the motion talks about resolving, meaning this House is taking a decision. We are not urging. And therefore, I expect the government, the ministry, the executive, to make sure that the motion is implemented to realize its objective. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I support the motion.
Honorable nominee 001.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, and I rise to support this noble motion, Honorable Speaker, because we are losing a lot of people through road accidents, which are caused by human negligence, especially the drivers. Honorable Speaker, apart from losing lives, Honorable Speaker, my club, which is that of persons with disabilities, keep on ballooning and increasing because of this road carnage. Every now and then that we have a road accident, what the media will concentrate on and what the citizen of this country will concentrate on is the number of deaths. They forget those who are maimed. Those who are maimed become a burden to our society because some of them will require wheelchairs, some of them will require crutches, some of them will require tax exemption, they will import duty-free vehicles, it will become a burden to our society. Honorable Speaker, again, when we increase the persons with disabilities, Honorable Speaker, we also increase the competition for some of these resources and these benefits that are accorded to persons with disabilities. Honorable Speaker, and our club is the only club that is full. We don't want any more members because we don't want competition to the benefit that have been given to us by the Jubilee administration, Honorable Speaker. The benefit that we have, we want to share those who are already disabled. We don't want further increase to the population of persons with disabilities. That is why we pray God every now and then that there will be no road accidents so that we don't increase. Because, Honorable Speaker, if the number of people increase with disabilities, that means my chances of becoming a nominated MP in 2022 will decrease. Therefore, we don't need this increase. Honorable Speaker, if you see, for instance, a pilot who flies an helicopter of 2 passengers, is trained, qualification known from secondary school, and really goes through a thorough training. If a pilot of a fixed wing of only 6 passengers is also trained. The qualification and the marks he got in high school, maybe an A or at least B+, is required for them to train as pilots. Yet, those drivers who are driving buses that have more than 60 passengers, 40 passengers, we don't know the qualification, we don't even know the primary school they went through, we don't even know the secondary school they went through. What we just do is license them to be carriers of a population that is 10 times that population that sometimes some pilots flies. Honorable Speaker, it is high time we think of road safety. And road safety should start from primary school so that, Honorable Speaker, in secondary school, already our kids are well aware of some of these road safety procedures, road signs. You know, sometimes these accidents are caused by merely assuming road signs. Pedestrian crossing, area zebra crossing, they assume, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, that is why I support this motion, because it is very important for our children to start by learning all these road safety procedures, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, and the problem is licensing through NTSA. NTSA have become another den of corrupt cartel who license anybody as far as they have something small called kickback, Honorable Speaker. I have a case in point where a Matatu Sacco in Narok have been registered since 2014 without going through the normal. And I'll bring this petition to this House, Honorable Speaker. Because, Honorable Speaker, all indications have shown that the Matatu Sacco that is operating in Narok is not qualified. It did not meet the required qualification as per the law, but was registered simply because probably they gave some kickbacks, Honorable Speaker. And this is the worst form of corruption, Honorable Speaker. So if we can inculcate this kind of behavior into our students, into our pupils, just from primary level to secondary level, so that by the time they come and even go and train as drivers, already they have the basic skills of, Honorable Speaker, road safety. Then it will be easier, even when they get licensed through dubious means, already from primary, from secondary, from that tender age, we have already trained them, and already they are aware of road safety procedures, Honorable Speaker. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, it is disturbing to have such a high number of casualties through road accident, and the cause is not mechanical, the cause is not our roads, the cause is human error. Majority of it is through human error. So, Honorable Speaker, I support this motion, and I urge all members in this House to support this motion, especially Dr. Nyikal, who is here, Dr. Bukose, who are here, who are the ones who normally deal with this patient who go through road accident. I support, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, before I give a next member, let me recognize in the public gallery St. Mary's, pupils from St. Mary's Nyamagwa Girls Primary School, Babasi constituency of Kisii County. Now, let me give Honorable Dr. Pukose. I will try as much as possible to look out for members who want to contribute, because I can't be able to see anything from here. But I will do that.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to support this motion by Honorable Soro on introducing road traffic regulations and laws to our young children as in the curriculum, both at a lower level to higher level, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in our country, when you walk in town, in our streets, especially here in Nairobi and other major towns, one of the issues that surprises you is that both the pedestrians and the vehicles are competing for the same space within the road. People are not cognizant of the fact that road traffic rules must be enforced. Mr. Speaker, you will find that when the lights are indicating red, the vehicles want to pass. When it is indicating green for the vehicles to go, wananchi also are struggling to pass through the same road. And this is a very bad habit. One time, Mr. Speaker, I happened to have traveled to Pretoria. And in South Africa, they call the traffic lights, they are called robots. So whether there is somebody crossing or not, you will find that people obey traffic rules. And in these circumstances, Mr. Speaker, while we were standing and it was indicating red, and because the road was empty, one young man crossed the road to the side we were in. And I decided to say habari to him in Kiswahili. And the guy replied, Mzuri. I asked him, where have you come from? He said, Kayole. He asked me, how come you've recognized that I'm a Kenyan? I told him, because you crossed the road when it was indicating red. So we have a bad habit. It's a Kenyan culture of people not obeying traffic. Even on weekend, when you find that the road is empty and the traffic lights are indicating that you should not cross, you'll find a mad driver driving all the way and passing. And this, Mr. Speaker, has caused a lot of road traffic accidents. We have people who have been maimed, just as Honorable Songok was talking about, although he was talking of trying to reduce the number. It's a good message. But we know that disability is not just caused by road traffic accidents. There are also diseases and other factors that bring that into play. Mr. Speaker, I think introducing the curriculum at a primary level will be the way forward for us, and even at secondary level will be the way forward for us as a country. Because you will find that people only learn about traffic rules and road regulations when they start, and even road signs, when they go to traffic school. Otherwise, anybody who has not gone to traffic school at times find it very hard to understand the road signs. So I think these are issues that this is a very timely motion to be able to inculcate a culture of our Kenyan population to understand that wherever you are, you should be able to understand traffic rules. Mr. Speaker, you find that even especially during dry season, people from Ole Sangok's place, you'll find them along Mombasa Road and other places, bringing their cows to the roads, Mr. Speaker. And I think this is where I'll ask Honorable Sangok to begin from, by educating his people. Because when his people bring cows to look for grass and water in the city of Nairobi and interfere with the traffic, I think it is something that it just gives you a picture of how much these people also understand about traffic rules, bylaws of the towns, and all these kinds of issues that affects us as a society. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to support this very important motion, and I'm hoping that it is not just going to stop as a motion, but Honorable Osore should be able to look at possibility of even bringing a bill, bringing a law that we can be able, or even an amendment within the Various Traffic Act, or an amendment within the Educational Act, so that we can be able to actualize this motion. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Thank you. I'll be calling two members in a row so that they can prepare to come closer to the dispatch box. That member there, I'm going to give you, yes, come to the dispatch box, and then followed by Honorable Ngunjiri of Bahati. Please, no, don't cross the floor. That does not allow you. Just come, no, you are okay. Just perfect. Come to this one. There is a dispatch box on both sides of the house. So, Honorable Ngujiri, you should be approaching, you should be coming closer to the dispatch box. And honorable members, let's be brief, because I am not able to look at the time you've spent here, so I might end up cutting you short. So please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I think this traffic rule affair is a very important one, and we need to give it the importance attaching to it. A number of times by the end of each year, we are given statistics of the people who have had accidents, those accidents which are fatal and those which are non-fatal. The deaths we suffer from road accidents, I think, can be avoided. Because of this, one thing I would really want is that it is not just the school children who should be trained. Everybody should be trained about the traffic rules so that we obey the traffic rules in order that we avoid accidents. The drivers of motor vehicles, motorcycles, should be occasionally trained, even if they had been trained before and they had licenses. This is to renew their knowledge of traffic rules. If we do this, we will be avoiding deaths. Now, I know we had even the case of insurance and whatnot for border borders and all this. Yes, sometimes if you look at these issues, you begin to wonder how many people we have who are either limping or are maimed because of road accidents, and nobody pays them for what happens. We need to have a strong insurance that can be compensating those who may accidentally get involved in situations impairing their physical situations. Mr. Speaker, sir, I support the motion.
And as Honorable Ngujiri proceeds to contribute, let me recognize in the public gallery pupils and students from Ikulungu Secondary School and Kirwara Secondary School, both from Mwea constituency of Kirinyaga County. And I see their active member is seated pretty to my right.
Nashukuru Bwana Spika kwa kunipa nafasi hii ya kuweza kuchangia jambo ambaye ni la muhimu sana katika Kenya hii. Na ningesema ya kwanza nasimama hapa kuunga mkono mjadala huu. Ni mjadala wa muhimu sana. Lakini Bwana Spika, ningetaka kurudi nyuma kwa historia pahali tumetoka, mambo ya ajali za barabara na sheria za barabara. Ingawa naiunga mkono, kuna mambo machache ningetaka kuyataja. Bwana Spika, driving license yangu nilichukua 1972. That's the time I got my driving license. Na ningetaka kusema, ingawa tunasema watoto hawa, tuweze kwenda kwa watoto kuwafundisha mambo ya sheria za barabara. Kuna mambo nyeti ningetaka kuyataja, na wajumbe wenzangu nafikiri wataunga hili jambo mkono. Jambo moja, hata kama ministry ya Matiang'i imeleta jambo hili, ijue ministry yake imefail. Kwa sababu wakati wetu tulipochukua driving license, kama unakuta traffic wakiwa mbele ya barabara wakisimamisha wewe, kitu ya kwanza wanakufanya mkono namna hii, unasimama. Kama wajakuja kwa gari wanakuambia akisha mataa, piga dim, weka signal, weka wiper. Hiyo yote wanafanya kama hajafika kwa gari. Akimaliza anarudi nyuma ya gari anasema kanyaga brake, brake light, parking. Hizo zote anakuambia. Anarudi anakuja anakuambia weka hard brake. Anatingiza gari anaona inaye. Tunasema kutengeneza sheria mpya, lakini sheria zilioko zikiweza kuzingatiwa kwa njia nzuri, tuta reduce accident ambaye ziko sasa kwa nchi yetu ya Kenya. Bwana Spika, ni jambo hatujaweka kabisa maanani. Kwa sababu ukiangalia kama 207, 208 wakati ya crashes, watu walikufa 1,000 na kitu. Na dunia mzima ikasimama kukodemu na kusema hiyo mambo ni mabaya. Lakini watu wakawa wanakufa kwa accident watu 3,000. Hatuja kabisa simama kama serikali kuweza kusema ni sababu gani. Bwana Spika, leo ukikuta traffic kwa barabara, kitu ya kwanza akisimamisha wewe driving license. Kwa nini? Kwa sababu hapo ndio wanawekewa pesa. Wanawekewa pesa kwa driving license. Kitu ya kwanza ni driving license. Kama huyo dereva alilete gari mpaka pahali wewe iko, hiyo inakuonesha anajua kupeleka. Kitu ya kwanza ni uangalie tairi za gari ziko namna gani, standi za gari ziko namna gani, hiyo gari ni shida gani naye uende kwa insurance. Then sasa utaweza uulize swali ile lingine. Lakini hata tukipitisha hii sheria, wabunge wenzangu, na ninaunga mkono, kama Matiang'i mwenyewe ambaye anasimamia polisi na traffic, kama hata simama mzuri, iweze sheria zilioko ziweze kufuatiliwa, then inaonekana tutazungumza mambo mengi na watu wataendelea kukua. Bwana Spika, Bwana Spika, ukiangalia mambo nyeti ambayo sasa inaendelea siku hizi, kweli tunapitisha sheria, lakini hawa watu hata kama hasa ni watu wa pikipiki wa bodaboda, wanapita right, left, any side they can pass, every corner they can go in any direction. Kama barabara ya kwenda pande moja ni hii, hiyo ndio wanapita wakirudi pande nyingine. Hizi ni sheria za kuweza kufuatiliwa, lakini kwa traffic hatujasimama imara, na tunasikia kuna ufisadi. Pesa ambazo zinaokotwa huko chini zinakuja zikitambaa mpaka zinafika huko juu, na hii ni unyonge. Lazima tufuatilie, tuseme enough is enough. Tuchunga watu wetu. 3,000 Bwana Spika kukufa kwa sababu ya ajali. Tusiangalie kufa kwa watu 3,000 peke yake. Wacha niongezee Bwana Spika kukuambia, watu 3,000 wakifa, tuende nyuma. Ni mzee amewacha familia, ni mama amewacha familia, tumekuwa na viwete. It is a big burden for this country. Na mimi naomba wajumbe tuichukulie nani kabisa, hata kama ni aje atuambie ni nini itafanyika kwa barabara kwa sababu ya sheria ambaye ziko. Tusipofanya namna hiyo, effect Bwana Spika ya kusema ajali ya watu 3,000, tukiangalia mzuri tunaenda kama watu 50,000. Tunaanza madawa, watu wengine wavunjika miguu, tunaanza mambo mengine mengi, na hii yote inachukua serikali pesa nyingi zaidi. Wakati tunatafuta pesa ya economy, I think kuna shida Bwana Spika, na wabunge wenzangu tujaribu kujadiliana kwa ukweli, tuangalie shida iko wapi na tutafanya namna gani. Sisi wote tungetaka mambo ya vifo ifike mwisho na watu wafuate nini? Watu wafuate sheria. Asante sana Bwana Spika kwa kunipa hiyo nafasi.
So I'll give 2 members. I will start with the member for Mwea, and then I will go to the member for is that Kitui West? Mwingi West, sorry. Mwingi West. He had order members. You will have your time, please. As long as members are brief, you will have your time. I'll now come to the other direction. I'll give all members.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to support this motion. Very important motion from my friend Osolo, Honorable Osolo. Mr. Speaker, some motions look simple, but this one is a very important one. We're talking about an economy that is lost to the tune of about 300 billion, Mr. Speaker, when we do not have a single activity that can generate the same, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I take this motion very seriously, and I hope that once passed by this House, it will be taken by the implementation committee, not to go to the shelves like others, but to be implemented immediately, Mr. Speaker. It's well within the mandate of NTSA, and it will also help NTSA to reach out to as many people in this country as possible, Mr. Speaker. We're talking about introduction of curriculum in our primary and secondary schools, Mr. Speaker, to introduce at the very early stages skills on driving, skills on other awareness, on safety, road safety, Mr. Speaker, and this will help a lot. And I borrow a riff from technology, Mr. Speaker. Having had our children get aware about technology from early stages, we are now starting to get gurus in technology in this country. We're now starting to even export some of them to other countries because they have grown with technology all along. Mr. Speaker, by introducing road safety, driving awareness and skills, and also simple mechanics of a vehicle, we are not only going to expose these children to what they expect to come across in their future times, but also make a lot of saving, Mr. Speaker. By having a population that is fully aware of the dangers of poor driving, dangers, and people who know their rights in as far as road usage is concerned, Mr. Speaker, we're going to reduce accidents in this country by a lot. We also are going to reduce costs incurred by some of us when we go to driving at old stages, Mr. Speaker. We are also telling these children at very early stages that there are dangers in touching the steering of a vehicle. There are dangers in using motorcycles, Mr. Speaker. And when they grow, they become drivers, they become border operators. They are growing with a culture, Mr. Speaker. And I want this to be a catchword to this House. We are developing a culture. Through this motion, we will be developing a culture in a community that will be growing, understanding, and knowing the dangers and the need for people to use our roads in a safe manner, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I want to support this motion. I want to encourage Honorable Soro not just to propose this motion, but also to follow it up to its implementation, Mr. Speaker, because it's a very important one. As I close, Mr. Speaker, I must speak about our border industry. This is an industry, Mr. Speaker, that I have a lot of support, and an industry that we all agree, and it was alluded to by our Cabinet Secretary in his budget policy statement on the importance of border and their contribution to the economy, Mr. Speaker. It is a high time that we take that to another level. It is a high time that the government comes up with a fund that will not only support the border in their insurance, but also to support them in acquiring licenses in the simplest manner. In my constituency, Mr. Speaker, I've taken it upon myself to start a whole driving school that will help these young men and women to continually go for their driving licenses, having realized that my CDF is not enough, Mr. Speaker, to individually support these young men. We will be starting this school. I have already applied to NTSA. I hope NTSA will not only give us the license, but also give us total support so that the 8,000 border operators in Mwea could one day claim to all have their licenses. And also on the insurance, Mr. Speaker, we hope that instead of the government just instituting a law for the borders to acquire insurances, comprehensive insurances, that we will create a fund that will be able to subsidize them to have these licenses, to have these insurances at a cheaper rate so that all can be covered, Mr. Speaker. And when we do this, we will be saving a lot of money, a lot of funds to this economy. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion. Thank you.
Now, next is Honorable Charles Nguna Ngusia.
Thank you.
Ordinarily referred to as CNN.
CNN.
That is for avoidance of doubt, so that you do not confuse Mwingi West and Kitui West. Yeah. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity given to me. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank Honorable Osoro, a.k.a. Surambaya, for moving this motion. And also, I would like to say that I would like to congratulate Honorable Nixon Korir for seeing it wise to move to the right side of the government. Mr. Speaker.
What is your point of order? You know you are not on record, are you? Honorable, I heard you being referred as Honorable CNN. Please, assume your seat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is it in order for the honorable member to refer me as Surambaya? Does he look at his Sura before he looks at mine, Mr. Speaker? Please.
That must have escaped my attention. To the extent I know, there is no Surabaya in this house. We only have honorable members. And then the Surabaya is actually the actual name of that member. Honorable
Mr.
Guna.
Speaker, I would like to put it clear that Honorable Soro already accepted this name, and it has always been circulating among the members. That is called Surambaya. Mr. Speaker, I would like to start contributing this motion. Let me say that knowledge is power, and sometimes we have to acknowledge that Information is liberating. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to support this motion, and especially, let's not actually introduce it in schools for the matter of being a subject. It can be introduced in schools as a matter of a subject or a title. Mr. Speaker, sir, many of our people in this country, especially the pedestrians and cyclists, they suffer because of lack of knowledge. If at all we are going to introduce this, we are going to be able to read the road signs, we are going to be able to recognize when we are supposed to use the pedestrian crossing. I've realized in this country, most of the time, the motorists actually don't respect the pedestrian crossing, especially in major cities. You'll see a person speeding when he's approaching a pedestrian crossing, but it's because that driver has not been to school, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, as we were back on this, if it's going to be approved and actually implemented at secondary and primary level, Mr. Speaker, sir, many of the people are going to have what we call knowledge of road using and also knowledge of driving. Most of the people, even I've observed in highways, they don't even know the rule of keep left. We have been saying our traffic rule is keeping left, but most of the time they don't practice it. And out of this ignorance, Mr. Speaker, sir, if we can treat this disease through educating our people, I am sure this is going to help a lot. And in these few remarks, I would like to support and encourage the honorable member actually to make sure this is implemented in our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Before I give to Honorable Aruke, to my right, allow me to recognize at Public Gallery, St. Mary's Nyamangwa Girls Primary School from Bobasi constituency, Kisii County. Then Upper Hill Academy Morit from Bureti constituency, Kericho County. We also have Kauga Primary School, Kinangop constituency, Nyandarua County. We also have Thika Road Christian Academy, Kasarani constituency, Nairobi County. And finally, we have Little Hands School, Naivasha constituency, Nakuru County. They are all welcome. Honorable Ruke.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me a chance also to contribute on this. From onset, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank Honorable Soro for bringing in this motion, Mr. Speaker. I support the motion, Mr. Speaker, because it is important to us, to the people of this nation, Mr. Speaker. For quite some time, Mr. Speaker, drivers forget when they are driving, and they need refresher course, like what Honorable Soro has brought. Mr. Speaker, we have had dates that are not necessary, Mr. Speaker, to our people. You can imagine, Mr. Speaker, you have paid money to the company or to the driver to take you home, be it either a taxi or a bus or a matatu, Mr. Speaker, and then you pay for the death. It is very sad, Mr. Speaker, for somebody's life to be shortened. Mr. Speaker, mine is after this one, Mheshimiwa. Mr. Speaker, we are losing 3,000 people in the country every year. And Mr. Speaker, we can control these accidents by taking our drivers for refresher course, to remind them to read the highway code, because some of them are just matatu doubts or conductors. who just practice or learn to drive from that time they are doing matatu doubts. Mr. Speaker, of a very long time, Mr. Speaker, these 3,000 people every year that we are losing and the money that the government is paying, the 300 billion, Mr. Speaker, the government can save the money to other things if our people are reminded or are educated on how to drive and how to keep the road rules, Mr. Speaker. One time, Mr. Speaker, at Serena here, I was going towards Salingham, and I stopped because pupils were crossing from Serena towards Uhuru Park. And somebody just came, when I stopped, somebody came from my left with a Range Rover, and he just crushed one boy down, Mr. Speaker, and I felt so bad because it's not only matatu drivers or bus drivers, Mr. Speaker, even us, I can say even members of parliament here, some members, Mr. Speaker, they don't know the rules of the highway code, Mr. Speaker. They don't take it. They just take things for granted, and this is important for us, Mr. Speaker, to be reminded. And the police are also not doing their job as well, because these accidents are mostly being caused because of reckless police on our roads, Mr. Speaker. And many of the matatus, Mr. Speaker, have done my research. Many matatus are owned by police, by this traffic police. So when the driver is arrested with another police, they will just call that your person is arrested, he has caused an accident, Mr. Speaker, and they will just leave him scot-free. Maybe he has caused death or bad accident, people are injured, but action is not taken because that vehicle or that matatu belongs to a police. So, Mr. Speaker, and it is said, Mr. Speaker, that the traffic commander, when he sends these policemen on the road in the morning, Mr. Speaker, he gives them a figure of the money. For them in the evening when they come back, Mr. Speaker, they must come with a certain figure of money, either 100,000 in the evening to send to the commander, the traffic commander, and it must stop. I'm speaking this, Mr. Speaker, as a Vice Chair of National Security, and we have taken action on this, and we are calling them. We wrote a letter to notify the Minister for Interior that we want to speak on this traffic police. So, Mr. Speaker, for those few remarks, I'm supporting this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Shall we now have Honorable Korir?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion on development and implementation of the curriculum on the road safety in primary and secondary schools. Mr. Speaker, road safety should be basic knowledge. Mr. Speaker, you'll appreciate the fact that currently in our roads, you will find very many drivers who don't know the meaning of a yellow line, who don't know the meaning of a white line, dotted line, who don't know how to enter a roundabout. Mr. Speaker, this motion will help in educating members of the public from the primary level of our schools so that they can get to know, to acquire this knowledge and get to know about our road safety. Mr. Speaker, road safety should not be known only by the drivers, but also the pedestrian and those who are being driven. Mr. Speaker, the motion by Honorable Osoro is very good because members of the public at large, not only the drivers, will know, will get the road safety knowledge. For example, Mr. Speaker, most of the pedestrians who are being carried when they are going to wherever place they are going in this country, most of the pedestrians only trust the driver to be right. Even if the driver was to overtake in a corner, they will believe that the driver is right. But with this knowledge, Mr. Speaker, the pedestrian also can be able to correct the driver and question the driver while he's driving and overtaking in a corner and overtaking where there is a complete one joint yellow line. Mr. Speaker, these are knowledge. These are some of the things we are talking about that this motion will help. Mr. Speaker, I'm supporting this motion because when you remember, when we were in primary school, we used to be taught about how to pass a motion, on how to pass a bill, or how to debate in parliament. Mr. Speaker, then we were not anticipating, some of us were not anticipating that we'll be in this parliament, but it was just a basic knowledge on how to pass a bill, how to pass a motion, how to support a motion, how to debate in parliament, and it is coming in handy right now that we're in this parliament. What we are saying is that basic road safety, like the meaning of a joint line, like how to enter a roundabout, how to leave a roundabout, not to change lines in a roundabout, should be just basic knowledge to everyone. A young kid in a primary school should be able to tell if the driver is driving the car is using well or not driving well. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion because you'll appreciate, just like the move of the motion has said, we are losing so many lives in this country because of recklessness in our roads. Some pedestrians are just crossing the roads even when the lights are red, not because they know that they are red, but because they are just looking. They are just looking at the road. There is no vehicle, and they decide to cross. I remember when we were in the primary school, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if they still teach that before you cross a road, you first look at the right, you look at the left, and you look at the right again before you cross. Those are the knowledge. Those are the basic knowledge that we need to inculcate in our members of the public. And the best place to do it is at the primary school and at the secondary school. Mr. Speaker, we are getting so many families suffering. We are getting so many suffering. People are in hospitals. People are getting maimed. People are losing lives. People are being left as widows and widowers because of the accidents that are caused in our roads. Most of the accidents that are caused in our roads are caused because of negligence or lack of knowledge. And what you are saying, Mr. Speaker, just to help in terms of protecting members of the public, is to ensure that every member of the public is aware of the road safety. They should know that in such and such a road, you are supposed to drive at 80 kilometers per hour, or in a highway, you're supposed to drive at 100 kilometers per hour, so that they can be able to tell the driver you're overspeeding, even before the police, because the traffic police in this country, what we are aware is that the traffic police in this country are not helping in correcting. They are not helping in correcting. They are waiting to punish. And to me, Mr. Speaker, the idea should not be punishing, but the idea should be preventing the accidents from happening. It shouldn't be that we are putting a speed gun so that we can arrest people. We should be having mechanisms to ensure that those people, before they drive, they are not drunk. We shouldn't wait for the drivers to get drunk, drive, then arrest them and punish. We should ensure that, for example, the alcohol blows are not at the end of the journey, but at the beginning of the journey. So that to ensure that most alcohol blows are closer to the bus than closer to the home. Because you will prevent accidents from happening when the alcohol blows are closer to the bar and not closer to the home. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion.
Yes, honorable members, I will start here. Honorable Gradwell, I believe. I will come to that end, and I will, after I have come to my left. So we'll get a chance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I've also reason to support this motion. The reason I'm supporting, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that currently we see the challenges we have with our pedestrians, the way people are actually walking along the roads and crossing, and more so our children who are affected innocently and because they don't know how to go about it. Mr. Speaker, sir, as much as we want to start these trainings, we want to show our children how to cross the road, it is also prudent that those people who make roads, the constructors of the roads, to put the right signages, because actually that is actually where the problem is. When you are driving along the road, you don't know where a school is. Apart from a signboard of a school, the signage to show that children are crossing here, you rarely get them on our roads. Those are some of the issues that even if we go train children, what will happen to those who are using the vehicles, the drivers? At the same time, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that we also need to concentrate on the the health of the drivers. We need to see, sometimes we have people who drive and yet their sight is not well. So as much as we want to train the road users, we would also want to see that our drivers, from time to time, get checks on their eyes and even their minds to see that they are up to the work of driving, to take safety of both the people he is driving and the people who are using the roads. It is unfortunate that the way we use roads in Kenya, when we look at a country like Thailand, when you go there, specifically Bangkok, the traffic is so high, but yet people are calm. Unlike the way we are so anxious, we are always wanting to be in front. And the most challenging part that we have, Mr. Speaker, sir, is on the border industry. Yes, this is an industry that actually has helped a lot of youth. It is an industry that actually has changed the lives of our youth and gave employment. But unfortunately, again, the way they ride on the road, we need to still look at how to help them to ride well. Because at times when you are driving, you get a boda or a motorcycle overtaking you from left. And at the same time, you are indicating on your left. So you meet at that point. And Mr. Speaker, sir, you see, currently in our hospitals, we have so many people who are sick, amputated, some have died. Some hospitals have actually isolated wards for these people who are affected by road accident through border. So it is something that has come actually on time. It would look small, but very important, because if actually we are going towards universal health care, it is important that we start from the preventive part of it to the curative part of it. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to support this motion.
Yes, I can see all the 4 members are standing. Let's start from Honorable Anyonyi. Honorable Elisha, you will still get a chance, I can assure you. I can assure you, you'll get a chance. And the others, you will come next when I come to my left. And then you could continue like that. I'll get to my right. Don't worry, Honorable Doctor and Professor. Don't worry. You get a chance.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. I also want to thank Honorable Osoro for coming up with this bill, with this motion, and I think we should support it. One is, Mr. Speaker, we have a serious problem in this country. And as you said, 3,000 people dying every year. I can attribute that because of careless driving on the road. 90% of those who have had problems, accidents on the roads, Mr. Speaker, I can for sure state in this House that this is as a result of poor and careless driving on the roads. The signs on the roads are no more meaningful. And you go at the president, I think the previous parliament, which I had a privilege of serving the previous parliament, we even suggested and passed a motion that you should have a lane dedicated specifically for emergency cases. Mr. Speaker, I think we should fast track that, because we said, and you go to other jurisdictions, other countries, you'll find that there's a lane specifically for emergency, a non-go lane, where you have either the ambulance or the police or somebody rushing because of an emergency. I drive on the road between here and Kitale. I can tell you, it used to take me less than 4 hours to get there at a normal rate. Today, you take more than 8-9 hours to get to Kitale. Reason? People break the laws left and right. you'll find a truck and the policeman seeing them. A truck was supposed to be on the last lane is on the first lane. You wonder whether this guy has gone to school, whether this man knows the signs of the roads or not. In essence, when you are driving on a highway, the truck's supposed to be on the extreme left. Mr. Speaker, I get amused on the road because you find that truck actually on the right. Between Sagal, which is between Nakuru and Molo, we've had a lot of accidents. In this house, we said we must have that area at least have 2 or 3 lanes. Mr. Speaker, up to now, they have done something about it, but once you get there, you get amused. I don't know whether you've had the time to go to Nakuru, to Eldoret. You find that truck actually on the right, and there's nothing on the left, 2 lanes on the left. So, in essence, the problem we have in this country is that we should spend some money, and Honorable Osora said we need about we spend about 300 billions on the bills. Yes, but if we can use half of it to be able to go in for refresher courses for both drivers after every 5 years or so, somebody has to go for at least a refresher course. I think it's time we enforce this law, because it appears people who are using the roads, Mr. Speaker, do not know what to do when they get on the road. A previous speaker here, I think I heard, he said, when a policeman stops you, the first thing is, before checking whether the road is the vehicle is roadworthy, he's asking for the driving license. What does that got to do with the driving? Because you get on the road, you must have a driving license. Fair enough. Some may not have a fair, but you see, you'll find a vehicle is defective or a very good vehicle, and yet he's asking you for things you are very relevant. So I want to support the motion by saying I think it's time for us, this country, because of so much money we are spending on bills, mortuary bills, hospital bills, it's time, Mr. Speaker, that we take part of that money and have fresher courses for all the drivers after every 5 years or whatever the time may be, and will be passed by this house, so that we can have less problems on the roads. In my own constituency, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, without a fear of a contradiction, every 3 months I'm taking over 74 border youths to go for driving licenses. And it has worked out very well, because my fear, my problem has been in the past, and has been spending a lot of money on mortuary fee and hospital fee, because you find a parent running to you, say, my son actually crashed with a border or something like that. And therefore, I think, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that let's take a cue from me. Those who have got CDF money, put some little money to train the border can do it, because it doesn't matter where you are. That same border may hurt you or may cause an accident when you go, say, to Nyeri, you go to Mombasa, you go to Kitale, you go to Turkana, whatever. So let's to use part of the money in training the boys in border, because AIGA is an industry that is supportive. And therefore, with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I think let's fast track this issue. And I want to thank Honorable Soro for coming up with this bill. And I think we'll support it up to the last, so that you can see it implemented as soon as possible. I thank you.
On my right now, let's start there. Honorable Rigi will get a chance, certainly. But let's start at the far end. Honorable, must be Honorable Ogutu. Professor. Honorable Professor Zadok Ogutu, if I got it correctly.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this motion. Mr. Speaker, I want to start by saying I get this motion interesting in helping us to reflect back to where we have come from as a nation. From a situation where rules and regulations were being observed, and the country was running quite successfully, to the current situation where we appear to be in total confusion. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, I want to begin by saying that I see this motion important by reflecting on how we can best implement and not develop the road safety regulations, because they are in place. So, Speaker, today's motion looks at students and pupils in our schools. I support this motion in the sense that students are the greatest travelers in this nation. They'll be moving to various schools activities. They'll be moving to the trips, as we see many of them here today. And so it is important that we get them to understand on what it requires to be on the road. Mr. Speaker, Kenya as a nation has seen the use of roads increase, especially in the recent past. The devolved government have introduced many new roads in the rural areas. And these roads will mean exposing our pupils to the other users of the roads, who include the boda and also the matatu drivers. Now, it's important that our youths know their rights when they are on the road, but also be cautious on how to use the roads. In promoting this, in supporting this motion, Mr. Speaker, we are saying that everybody who uses the roads needs knowledge. So our pupils are not exception. And as they engage daily to travel between home and school, we need them to be aware on how to use these roads. So, Speaker, I want also to say that other than emphasizing the need for use of roads, road safety in our schools, we also need to think about campaigns. NTSA comes in the center as the organization which is mandated to do these campaigns. I don't think that our pupils, especially in the rural areas, have an idea about how they should use the roads. And the need for this knowledge becomes critical, especially when they move from the rural areas to the urban areas. The Speaker, I want to say that my constituency, I have had to carry many bodies back in the village of youth who have come to Nairobi and they cannot tell which side of the road to use. This motion emphasizing on the need to implement road safety right from primary schools, and if necessary, re-emphasizing to make sure that this component of the curriculums will be examinable, is critical and timely. Mr. Speaker, I want to support this motion and say that it's important and timely. Thank you very much.
Before I give to the next speaker, allow me to recognize two schools that have come. St. Francis of Assisi, Kirwara, from Mwea constituency, Kirinyaga County, and also Ikurungu Secondary School from Mwea constituency, Kirinyaga County. Both schools are welcome. Honorable Elisha Odhiambo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity to give my views on Honorable Sosi's motion. From the onset, Honorable Osoro, from the onset, let me say that as a country, we are not doing very well. At a time like this last year, we had lost 445 Kenyans because of road accidents. That is 2018. 2019, up to this time, according to NTSA survey, we have lost 485. So it therefore means that nothing is improving. According to World Health Organization survey, the country loses between 3,000 to 13,000 Kenyans every year. So this is something that calls for urgent action, not just urgent action, an affirmative action, so that we don't lose as many Kenyans as we are losing. On the 8th of July, in my constituency, a bus that was traveling from Siaya to Nairobi veered off the road in Nyagondo and killed a child who was 13 years old, and 40 others were injured. This Monday, the 17th, at Sagana in Kirinyaga, Mr. Kenneth Mwaura was killed by a police vehicle that was going to Nyeri. And I want to pass my sympathies to the family of Kenneth Mwaura for that loss. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, this motion comes at a time that the country needs to mainstream good norms for students in both primary and secondary schools. And as those who have studied education will tell you, education initially was supposed to offer 4 skills. And the most important of those skills was the normative skill, so that the kids in primary school have road safety norms as they grow, so that they are nurtured as better Kenyans. The second skill was creative skill, which may not be relevant for road safety. The third skill, that foundation of education.
Character of always committing these accidents, since the accidents are caused because of lack of knowledge and how to use the road signs, Mr. Speaker, how to obey the traffic laws, Mr. Speaker, and when this when the road safety education is introduced in the secondary, primary level, Mr. Speaker, our pupils there, they will have knowledge, Mr. Speaker, to exercise or to implement that knowledge when they are using the roads, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, most of the accidents which normally occur in the Republic, Mr. Speaker, they are caused by the carelessness and lack of knowledge, Mr. Speaker. This is whereby you will see a driver or even a pedestrian, he lacks the knowledge to use the road or to drive, Mr. Speaker, using the correct way or the correct information given by the traffic, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this also will also help the border riders, Mr. Speaker, since this is an industry which is upcoming, and this is where we have many young people. And the young people who are engaged in border operating in the country, Mr. Speaker, they are right from high school and others from university, Mr. Speaker. So it means that when this knowledge will be impacted onto them, Mr. Speaker, they will have a prior knowledge to use when they will be operating their borders, Mr. Speaker, in the, or when they are using them in the roads, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to urge my fellow members, we support this motion, and let's not only support the motion, but ensure that, Mr. Speaker,
we'll get the other members get a chance.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving this opportunity to me to contribute to this motion of regarding road accidents. And I really congratulate the mover of this motion, Honorable Osoro, because as we stand here or sit here today, Mr. Speaker, we shall agree that among the major causes of death in our country, apart from diseases, I think accidents are taking the toll. Road accidents have taken more numbers than even AIDS, than even cancer, than even any disease. And for that reason, therefore, it's very, very important that we go to the main causes of why we should die the way we are dying. I strongly support this motion. In Kenya, the major causes of accidents have been very well identified. Human error is leading on this. We have drunk drivingness. We have carelessness on the roads. we have speeding, we have overloading, we have mechanical problems, we have corruption, which are the main causes of accidents on the road. And with all these reasons, if you look careful, Mr. Speaker, you will agree with the mover of this motion there is need for people to be trained and understand the need of people to understand the reasons which causes deaths on the road. Mr. Speaker, on Sunday afternoon at 3:30, I was driving from Kilifi to Mtwapa. Reaching Vipingo Ridge, I was personally driving myself. I witnessed a very grisly accident which could be avoided. There were some goats which were crossing from one side of the ridge to the other side of the Vipingo estate. There was a matatu that was carrying students from the side of Mtwapa going to Kilifi, and another matatu was driving from Kilifi going to Mtwapa. Now, the one who was coming from Mtwapa tried to avoid hitting the goats. And by the way, the matatu was highly speeding because I could see it. In the process of avoiding to crash on the goats, he went head-on with the matatu that was coming from Kilifi. I was personally involved in the rescue mission. On the spot, no death occurred. But by the time we got some ambulances to come and rescue those who were involved in the accident, we ended up losing 3 people. This is an accident, Mr. Speaker, that could have been avoided. Because in my own conscience, I would ask myself, who is supposed to be spared life first? Is it the goats or is it the human beings? But you see, this driver opted to save the lives of the goats only to cost the 3 lives of human beings. And apart from the human beings, there were those who died, there were so many others who were also maimed in the process. Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this motion, and I support it strongly. In fact, there is one of the members here who contributed that there is need to educate our border sector about the need of road safety. Mr. Speaker, you and me know very well. Sometime before the border industry got into Kenya, people had to walk long distances to be able to get to the destinations they were going in. The border sector is playing a key role in transport in our country. But the challenges are the same. Most of these boys and girls who are riding the borders are not trained. You find one is trained for 3 hours. After the 4th hour, he is already on the road. He lacks any information of what is supposed to be observed on the road. He is completely naive of even of his own safety or her own safety on the road. And therefore, training is not supposed to be actually for those who are directly involved in riding or driving. It's supposed to be everybody. I have seen accidents which are being caused by drivers' naivety. You find it's a sport where there's so many people who are supposed to be crossing, and the driver is not even taking cognizance of that. He just drives at the speed that makes him feel that he's feeling the drive. This is the biggest reason why we are saying they should be trained. And it's not only the driver, even the students, as mentioned here, and the general public, because we are training these people for the purpose of safety of human beings. And for those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I stand to support this motion. Thank you.
We will start at the far end, coming this way. Honorable Dr. Mutunga, you don't need to face at the back. It is you that has a chance now.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this very important motion. Honorable Speaker, I was facing the back because I wanted to know who was on the far end, but I'm grateful that at least you've given me an opportunity to join the others in supporting this particular idea of introducing training of road safety in this primary and secondary school curriculum. Honorable Speaker, I remember when I was in primary school, from primary 6, 7, 8, and even secondary school, and Honorable Speaker, I know I have not forgotten anything that I was taught that time. What am I trying to say? I think this is the prime age of learning. This is when the brain is at the highest in terms of receiving or keeping information. And therefore, introducing the curriculum at this point in time will help us a lot in making sure that we have individuals who will never forget what they have learned. Honorable Speaker, there is need for us to also have continuous advocacy on road safety. I think what NTSC is doing is not sufficient. Either NTSC is not sufficiently funded, or NTSA has got some reason why they're not doing their work the way we expect. We would like to see continuous advocacy on the road safety issues and the nitty-gritties in the road safety and where people normally make mistakes. So this is not happening, and I think I would like to see that too as some backup to the training, because even if we do the training, there will be need for reminder. Honorable Speaker, I look at the training in the sense that we need to also caution on the adherence to the traffic the traffic code and the regulations that are supposed to be observed on the road. Speaker, training our children at this point in time is preparing them to become powerful global citizens. What I mean by powerful global citizens is people who are informed, people who are empowered with knowledge. Our children will travel far and wide, and we wish and hope that they will do that. Honorable Speaker, when you go to other countries, sometimes you go to a right hand keeping country in terms of driving, you may have challenges in keeping the vehicle on the road. And normally what people do is try to remain in the middle of the road because they know drivers remain in the middle of the road, and this turning sometimes can confuse someone. If you've never had that experience, I remember I drove one time in Japan, and I had issues with keeping the vehicle on the road when there was need for us to do that. So, Honorable Speaker, I think it is important for us to train our children so that they can know and become better drivers even out there, because we do not expect them to live in this country forever. And the details of different countries change, the way to choose lanes and so on and so forth. Honorable Speaker, there is need for us also as a country to look at what we are doing in terms of the roads in the urban centers. We need to fully designate emergency routes, and these emergency routes need to be marked and blocked for that specific purpose. For that specific purpose and use. Sometimes you realize that when there is need for emergency response, our roads are blocked. The ambulatory care cannot access the points. The fire safety, vehicles cannot maybe access the buildings that are burning, and therefore it is very difficult. We have realized that there is a law that is happening around Nairobi, and we are designating some routes as one way, and that is really the way to go, because that's the way the world has gone, and we need to emphasize a lot more on that. Honorable Speaker, there is this project on monitor cameras. We are wondering as Kenyans when we let ever move from the trial stage or the pilot stage to the actual implementation stage. We are seeing every road or many roads, the cameras are now growing out of Nairobi. Now they have gone to the environs of Nairobi, and we believe that this project must have yielded some resources at this point in time. It is only these cameras and the actual follow-up of what really they record that can caution errant drivers or those drivers that do not adhere to the regulations. So I would expect that this project are going to give us the results, and the results will be applied so that you can move forward. And this training, of course, will include such nitty-gritty so that our children will know why are we having these cameras and why should we have them. Because when you go to other countries, you realize that you'll never find traffic police on the road. You will always find cameras monitoring the speed and even the carelessness or negligence in the use of the road. Finally, Honorable Speaker, there was a time this country had adopted a policy of removing certain vehicles from the road. I know Kenyans would like to drive, and I know it is good for us to drive, but Honorable Speaker, I would like to see a situation where something happens that is closer to those other countries that sell vehicles to us. They sell vehicles to us as second-hand vehicles because those vehicles are not roadworthy. If it has stayed for more than 5 years on the road, that vehicle is removed from the road. I'm not trying to say that Kenya should remove all the vehicles from the road, but we should have designated routes for designated age of vehicles if we do not look at the extent to which these vehicles pollute the air. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Yes, to my left now, before I can see Honorable Member for Seme, you shall get a chance, but before you, we really must have Honorable Nyenze. And allow me, before Honorable Nyenze speaks, to recognize at the public gallery, Kitui School, from Kitui Central Constituency, Kitui County, as well as Glory Elite Educational Center, Bakasi Central Constituency, from Nairobi County. Both schools are welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate Honorable Osoro for this good motion on the introduction of curriculum for training students and pupils in schools and students in schools, and also both in primary, secondary, and also university. Let me also note that this training is very necessary because it will assist pupils to know the rules, to also know the traffic code of conduct, and to also know how to behave on the roads. This is very important because at this young age, it will help these pupils and also the students to develop a culture which will help the whole society, because these pupils are the ones who grow to be drivers, they grow to be road users, they are the ones who will know how to use the road in the right way. So with such a culture, our country will develop to be a country which will observe rules and regulations, as you have seen in other countries. But let me also note that this training will protect our children as passengers. We have seen many people not use the roads in the right way. We expect that Kenyans would change from worse to good, but it's like we are going the opposite way. When you use the roads, these days you are seeing people just crisscrossing the roads, even when the vehicle is there. You see someone just jumping on the road, and it's like these days is the driver who has to take care of the passengers. The passengers are not careful at all. They are just crossing the roads. So this is very important because it will help our people or help us develop a culture that will help us start observing the safety on our roads. I would also expect the NTSA to come up with some campaigns before this policy is implemented, because I know it will take time for the policy, for the students to be educated from primary to this culture is developed. I would expect NTSA to come up with some campaigns. And these campaigns is like a shocker or something to jumpstart our Kenyan people to know that there is danger in the misuse of roads. And such campaigns would actually make sure that we reduce the road accidents. Because if we continue like this, then many people, what is reported is that we have 2,000 to 3,000 people who die annually from road accidents. But we don't have a report of those ones who get actually injured, those who get maimed, those who cannot, who are breadwinners for their families, and they can no longer do the same duties as they were doing. So I would expect before this culture is developed, because it will take some time, for NTSA to come up with some campaigns which would, as I've said, behave like a shocker or a jumpstart for the Kenyans to be, for them to know, for us to know that we are getting people who are dying, we are getting people who are being maimed, they are getting people who are losing their employment because of the bad road use. So with this, I support the Honorable Osoro for this, the introduction of curriculum for training of students and pupils in our schools. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, before I get to Honorable Bai, let's start this way. Now, we'll go. Honorable Brenda, you will still get a chance. Let's start this way. Honorable Raso, member for SACO. You are not very many, so be sure you get a chance to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
On the onset, I want to thank Honorable Osoro. I've not been seeing him in this house, but thank you for what I call a very important motion for this country. Although you have really said it is about the students and the pupils' education, that is key. But I want to say that the NTSA, the National Police Service, Department of Traffic, and any other organizations. But as soon as those institutions come to be, one of the problems we experience is the issues of corruption and conflict within the institution. The institutions begin to fight. I really want to say that since we formed the NTSA just a few years down the line, I think we have seen a lot of changes on our roads, particularly in the area of discipline, in the area of road safety measures, road marking. Further to that, I think there are key things that we need to take into consideration, Mr. Speaker. When we are constructing our roads, one of the things we must take into consideration is safety for both the pedestrians and also the road users, whether they are motorcyclists, the border, or drivers. Because our roads are made with an intent that it is only for those who are driving cars. Most of our roads do not have pedestrian walkways, that both the cars and the pedestrians, they actually struggle to occupy that space of 10 meters. And I think the road constructors, particularly Kura, Kera, Kena, and all those organizations, when they are constructing our roads, they must take that into consideration, that the road is not just for the drivers, but also for pedestrians. Mr. Speaker, the traffic warden all over the world, because we members of parliament, we travel a lot. You see the work of traffic wardens. In this country, because of discipline on our roads, actually just across parliament, if there'll be no traffic wardens on Haile Selassie roundabout, I think there will be chaos on that day. We need to say that we need traffic lights. We need to have the zebra crossing for the pedestrians to cross. But also, we need to give the traffic wardens their space so that there's seamless flow of traffic. Mr. Speaker, the issue of road markings, the Michuki rolls, the border, are some of the things we almost say that we have made some progress, and then we take 2 steps backward. Because by the time we had the Michuki rules, we said that all passengers on public transport or even private vehicles must put on a safety belt. Those safety belts, actually even in our own cars, saves many, many lives. But we take those things for granted. As far as the youngsters are concerned, when they travel long distances, maybe they are from Western, Northeastern, Eastern, to travel to Nairobi over long distances of 600, 700 kilometers, the drivers are tired. The students are booked at a hostel in Nairobi, another 500 kilometers away. They try to make those arduous journey. So as we try to develop a traffic act to support this motion, which I believe is so important, we must also call upon the teachers of this country. As they educate the youngsters, as they move them around the country, they must take the safety of those young learners into consideration. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support.
Is that Honorable Nyikal, member for Seme?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. May I start by congratulating Honorable Osoro for bringing this important motion. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious national issue in economic and health terms. And this is really how to look at it. Mr. Speaker, road accidents is a major cause of illness and death in this country. The mover has indicated that about 3,000 people die annually. In fact, WHO concludes that that actually may be lower figure and it could be as high as 12 to 13,000 a year. Mr. Speaker, apart from people dying, people being maimed, and people being disabled, it is a major factor in the cost of health in this country. It is a major disease burden to the nation. Mr. Speaker, if you go to some wards in this country, you actually find wards that are actually designated accident wards, and with people with fractures who are staying in hospital for actually months and years. And if they're to be treated, it is expensive surgery with implants that we can ill afford. Many of them cannot afford. We have to do a rambe. So, Speaker, this has been made worse by our transport system, particularly the coming in of the border transport and the matatu system. Needless to say, these are systems we cannot do without because we don't have a proper public transport system. But the side effect of this is the major cause of death and injury. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, most of these deaths are amongst young people. Studies have shown in this country, in fact, in Thika it was done not long ago, and it showed that 98% of the people who die from these road traffic accidents related to matatu are young men below the age of 30. We cannot afford to lose those people. Mr. Speaker, road traffic accidents is a major factor in health. In fact, it is part and parcel of the non-communicable diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, cancer. In fact, in countries that have actually been able to tame communicable diseases, malaria, typhoid, and so on, this becomes a major morbidity problem in a country. And legislation will definitely work. Mr. Speaker, the previous speaker indicated the Michuki rules. I was in the Ministry of Health then, and we could demonstrate quite clearly with the data of admissions, particularly in hospitals along the road, that with Michuki rules, there was a significant reduction on the number of people who were admitted and people who died from road traffic accidents. So there's no doubt that if you abide by the traffic rules, we will not only save people, but will also reduce our spending in health. Mr. Speaker, in other countries, road traffic rules are actually considered as part of the data for health. And in fact, they have data like the number of people who are found drunk while driving is a significant health matter. The number of drivers who are found without license is a data that is used. The number of riders without helmets is, this thing of helmets, some people take it for granted, both the rider and the passenger. But it's probably one of the biggest causes of death in traffic, in accidents involving motorbikes. Because head injury, in fact, in some countries, the people who are driving motorbikes are referred to as organ donors because they have severe head injury, they die while the rest of the body is still okay. And in those countries, they actually gather their organs for transplant. WHO and other bodies are involved. I think they should take this matter seriously, help the country to develop policies and strategies and plans that will address this issue. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support the motion by Honorable Soro and only call that we should move further and get better legislation. Thank you.
Very well. You know, the good thing about where I sit is I'm able to tell who came after who. So, and you see, Honorable Professor Sheikh is pushing to speak before even Honorable Munene, who he found here, and then Honorable Bai, who followed Honorable Munene. Of course, Honorable Jennifer is pushing the Jeddah card. She will also speak. So let us have Honorable Munene first.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to add my voice in supporting the motion by Honorable Soro. I must say from the onset that this motion is very timely and it has come at the right time. And what actually moves me is that Mr. Soro is proposing mandatory and examinable curriculum on road safety in our school. We all know that, especially like me, the only reason why I can sing about national anthem, even when I'm asleep, like ABC, is because it was taught to me the first day I went to school. So if we start impacting or teaching or training our young students about road safety when they go to class 1 or to nursery all the way to secondary school, by the time they are out of secondary school, actually they'll be knowing, and eventually and surely we'll end up having our old generation which is aware about the road safety in Kenya. There is this misconception, Mr. Speaker, that it's only the rider and the driver or the motorist who are supposed to know about road safety. And to me, I think everybody, even the pedestrian, the person crossing the road, need to know about the road safety. And it's not surprising that the majority of Kenyans actually do not know about the rules and regulations about our roads. Yet it is presumed that ignorance of law is not a defense. But you have seen a situation whereby you are just driving and just someone just jump in front of you and you wonder where is this person coming from. And when you ask them, especially in the urban setup, they say you can also see me. That's what Kenya, that attitude. So we need to change as we teach the road safety in our school. We need to change the attitude that it takes the driver or the rider or the motorist and also the pedestrian to avoid this accident. And also when we come to our roads, how do we construct our roads? Like when you go to upcountry setup, you find that the way our roads are done, they are done in a way that they are so narrow, there's nowhere pedestrian can walk, there are no zebra crossing, yet you expect a kid who is in class 1 to go to school and use the same road. And he has no knowledge, or she has no knowledge on how to go about when crossing or using that road. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this motion has come at the right time. It needs to be supported by all, and it is good for our country that everybody is taught about their own safety. And also when you come to about the cost of implementing this motion, to me it is almost nil, because already the primary schools are there, the secondary schools are there, so it's an issue of it's just an issue of developing the curriculum. Teachers are already there. We can have additional teachers who are also taught or now so that they can be able to train the student. So the cost implication of implementing this motion would be almost nil. Yet it will be so, in terms of the effect on Kenyans, it will be so great, and we end up saving so much money which is lost when all these accidents occur. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support. Thank you.
Before I get to my left, let's have Honorable Bai.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to add my voice on the very honorable motion by our brother, Honorable Osoro. Mr. Speaker, we all live and reside in this country, and we know the rates of road accidents, the rate of deaths, the rate of maiming, the rate of permanent injuries caused by road accidents, Mr. Speaker, calls for some action and serious action. Mr. Speaker, we know, we can tell the disparity between the rates of accident in Kenya and the rates of accident in other countries like our neighbor Tanzania and other countries with more vehicles than we do and with worse roads than we do. Mr. Speaker, that tells us that there is a social problem we need to fix. Mr. Speaker, the introduction, as the motion proposes, the introduction of training, driving school, and pedestrian use of roads, curriculum in our schools, both from primary, secondary, and colleges, Mr. Speaker, will give our children and every Kenyan an opportunity to get socialized on how to use the roads from early ages. And I can see this as the only way, Mr. Speaker, to camp the unnecessary challenges we have in our roads, Mr. Speaker. It's too alarming. The government has tried from the Michuki rules to the very recent, Mr. Speaker, ways of knee-jerk cracking of road users who are on the wrong side of the law, but that has not worked, Mr. Speaker. So looking at inculcating this culture into our kids as from the very early stages in their life through a curriculum-based program from our education system, Mr. Speaker, this will help. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, we've seen the government introduce what they are calling the free secondary education and also paying or giving, Mr. Speaker, loans for technical training colleges. Mr. Speaker, the cost of getting a driving license in this country is way much far above the normal youthful person in this country. Mr. Speaker, a young man who's done his Form 4 and has attained 18, 19, 20 years and want to have a driving license, and the parents cannot afford to pay for him, and he wants to ride a boda to earn some living, or he wants to ride or to drive a Probox to earn some living. Mr. Speaker, such a young man cannot afford the cost of a driving school. So I would like, in the same spirit, in the same motion, Mr. Speaker, I don't know how we are going to go about it, but we add on, because the government is doing, has provided free secondary education and also free technical training colleges, driving skills to be included in the free programs being given by the country, being given by the government, Mr. Speaker. And it's affordable. Or 90% of the young men outside there doing borders, doing Proboxes, just left school the other day, and they achieved, or they went through the free secondary education. So in the same spirit, Mr. Speaker, they would have gone through a free or a government paid for driving program and get a driving license, Mr. Speaker. With the culture in the minds from the very early age, and also proper training to get a driving license, Mr. Speaker, at an affordable cost or a cost which has been taken care of by the government, Mr. Speaker, I think we'll be in a position to reduce the number of accidents in our roads and also all these, Mr. Speaker, challenges we are seeing. Mr. Speaker, we've seen people lose their lives within a twinkling of a second, just out of a small driving mistake or a small pedestrian mistake. We have challenges in both the drivers and also other road users. Somebody trying to cross the road, somebody trying to call another person from across the road, somebody trying to help kids cross the road, and they are doing it the wrong way, Mr. Speaker. All these people will need to be trained. Mr. Speaker, the NTSA, for those who now are out there and cannot be brought back to school to be trained on this, I believe the NTSA, which is now under the Ministry of Interior, can take up that matter, sensitize these people, provide a forum where they can benefit from free training. As a speaker, I have always felt frustrated since I joined this house. I don't know, when we discuss issues and forward them to the relevant departments, they are never implemented. I don't know, we become a house of suggesting to some authority which cannot listen to our suggestion. Mr. Speaker, we are the people elected by the people. And when we say people should be given opportunities to take advantage or to be given free driving lessons and get free driving licenses, I don't think we should be begged for that, Mr. Speaker. That should be a directive from this House, because that will curb the challenges we have with the border borders, Mr. Speaker. In the same spirit, Mr. Speaker, the enforcement agencies, they've been well trained, they are doing very well, but we've seen, Mr. Speaker, some crackdowns which also occasion some kind of increase in road accidents. Let's say NTSA, the traffic police, have decided to do an abrupt or an ambush along Mombasa Road when the motorists were not aware and decide to crack and road with the vehicles and all that. Mr. Speaker, you will see vehicles trying to turn back, vehicles to use some funny routes to go around it, vehicles trying to overspeed to run away from the police. Mr. Speaker, I think we need also the police to come up with a proper policy, a proper program of enforcing the rules, instead of just trying to come up with some knee-jerk emergency ways of curbing, especially during the holidays, Christmas, national holidays, Mr. Speaker, and this is the time when the traffic is too high, everybody's rushing home with their families and all that. Then, Mr. Speaker, you find a snail up on the road of so many vehicles because the police have just erected an abrupt barrier just to curb and road with the vehicles. And these vehicles have been there throughout the year in the country. Why have they waited until that very late to come and do it abruptly? So, Mr. Speaker, as we support, I would request the implementation committee to follow up and make sure that if the bill goes through, and I believe it will go, it is implemented to the letter. Thank you, and I beg to support.
Honorable Memusi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this motion. And Mr. Speaker, let me start by also congratulating the Honorable Member, Honorable Soro, for this motion. For what has been said, Mr. Speaker, cannot be said in any other better way. Road safety in this country has not been taken as seriously as it should be. Mr. Speaker, we are wired as Kenyans to think that road safety is an issue of the police. Mr. Speaker, the road safety matters are not just personal issues, but also national issues. Mr. Speaker, my colleagues have talked about the far-reaching effects of accidents. We have a lot of people who've been maimed. We have lives that have been lost. We have people, Mr. Speaker, who this country has spent millions of shillings training in different fields. But those people have been lost because of road carnage. Mr. Speaker, this proposal, this motion, Mr. Speaker, to train students at a very early stage would curb this. But Mr. Speaker, I also would just want to challenge the Honorable Member, Honorable Soro, to take up this motion further and actually turn it into an act, because as a motion will contribute here, will say very good things, but the implementation on the same might not be possible. So, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Member, this is a very good idea, but it should go to become an act, and it should actually go further and consult with other stakeholders in the education implementation. For example, Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, because this is something that if this House passes as an act and anchored in the Education Act, Mr. Speaker, will help this country. It will help this country not just to curb on road carnage, but Mr. Speaker, it will also make this country very attractive, because you can imagine, Mr. Speaker, a workforce of everybody who can drive. Right now, Mr. Speaker, I am driving myself because my driver fell ill. So anyone else in my office would have been able to drive. So, Mr. Speaker, if we had anybody, you can stand on the streets and anybody can drive at any one time, Mr. Speaker, I think that will make this country also very competitive. And of course, as the country becomes competitive, also investors will be attracted to such places. So, Mr. Speaker, as a matter of urgency, this House should take this motion to be turned by the Honorable Member to an act and immediately passed, because this is something that will see fruits immediately. And with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support the motion and thank the Honorable Member. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Let's have, before I come to Honorable Sheikh, let's have Honorable Jennifer Shamala.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I want to first I rise to support this motion and congratulate the Honorable Osoro. I also agree, as you look at what is going on in this republic, it is staggering, the recklessness with which you see people behaving on the roads. I think it's only in Kenya where you will see somebody attempting to cross a 4-lane highway and there is a bridge that has been provided for it. And I wonder if this is just sheer rebellion, or is it madness? I have no idea. Or it could also be lack of education, lack of understanding of actually that you need to be educated to cross a road. I remember when I was growing up, we were taught look right, look left, look right again, and then cross. Indeed, I think that along with this motion, we must tribes that just get higher. Mr. Speaker, sir, the other thing I think we must address and try and understand as a people and
avoided. But because of our carelessness, we have had to bury a very productive lot of our country. Mr. Speaker, a lot has been said about the need to erect berms in front of schools that border highways or other roads. For instance, the school that I went to, Nyalenda Primary School, in Nyando Sub-County, Kisumu County, Mr. Speaker, the last 3 years, with the recarpeting of Mau Summit Kisumu Kakamega Road, we have lost over 20 children right in front of the school gate. If we had berms erected on this, and we have made enough necessary noises to this regard, we could have avoided deaths of these so many children within such a paltry amount of time. So I think we should still make it a law that apart from the signage, and they're always there about children crossing the road, but drivers constantly ignore such signages. So we need to do more than just the signage. And Mr. Speaker, we also need to improve the road user behavior by inculcating positive attitudes. There are people I have heard who say that vehicles have eyes and therefore they can just cross the road. Just because the vehicle have lights, they misinterpret the lights for eyes. And the behavior of our society as far as road usage is concerned is deteriorating, that a lot more needs to be done. And therefore, having this as part of curriculum from ages, actually, Mr. Speaker, I would suggest that from ages 4 going forward, children must be taught on road safety and the usage of roads, or traffic rules for that matter. If done from that point, and it moves to primary school, it escalates to high school, and even perhaps the university and other tertiary colleges, this will be, for posterity. And our country, I think, will now have to contend with fewer deaths that are related to traffic. Mr. Speaker, our people have had to sell their properties just to defray hospital bills. And we have had people going through, or rather sinking in deep poverty, just because somebody who is a family member was involved in a road accident. And therefore, I want to once again congratulate my brother Osoro for coming up with this most incisive motion. But lastly, I would want to recommend, Mr. Speaker, it is known that videos or tabletop pictorials and all that always sync information better than just word of mouth. So while coming up with this idea, let's ensure that we have those digital gadgets that children will see and connect with so that they can hence move forward in a better fashion. Mr. Speaker, this is going to help in promotion of knowledge and understanding of traffic rules and situations on our roads. And with that, I support this motion. And I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Professor Sheikh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand here to support this motion, and I want to congratulate Honorable Osoro for bringing up this. This is a very important motion for our children, for our generation, for our country. And the reality here comes is that child safety is an important thing in our midst, in our country. Road safety has been an issue that has not been looked into quite considerably. The main reason is that the laws that are governing road safety have not been enacted properly in this case. Particularly the reason is that road safety in schools is the precursor road safety and rules, observing rules for that matter. And the 13,000 lives lost mainly comes from issues to do with pedestrians, issues to do with riders or motorcyclists, issues to do with people who are walking along the road paths. What really makes me wonder is that road signs are quite peculiar in this country. And why do I use the term peculiar? It is peculiar because from the other parts of the world, road signage are quite clear and clearly seen. But in this country, that seems not to be there. As we used to be calling zebra crossing, we are not zebras, but the terminology zebra crossing has been used in many parts of this country. It is ideally, crossing lane. The crossing lanes that used to be called the zebra crossing is actually hardly recognized by motorists when they are driving. And therefore, that calls for an immediate action to see that any driver who does not abide by that law or by that rule for the safety of societies should be reprimanded, license suspended, license cancelled, and license, put into questions so that people can really understand that laws are laws and must be observed. One more other thing that I really want to say is that investment in road safety has been barely a touching one, and it is being barely a scrap on the books of our budgetings. And therefore, I really want to urge that a considerable amount of funds are considered for this. The funding for, a curriculum on road safety is the other thing that really needs to be looked at. Schools are supported, the education curriculum is supported, and road rules are actually set in schools so that our future generation, our young children who are in school now, so that when they grow up, they can be continuing to observe, among other laws that are there in this country. Mr. Speaker, while I want to stop to this, I really must emphasize on the role of NTSA. The role of NTSA for the safety of our children and our society on roads is something that really needs to be looked at. While we have enacted laws, that look at that authority, the authority needs to be a strong and focused one. It should be an authority that is out of corruption, an authority that examines things through the lens of law. And as we observe through the lens of law, then we will ensure the safety of our children, our society, our communities is well observed. I also want to emphasize on the issues of helmets. Riders that do not look at helmets is something that really frustrating many of us. It's frustrating our society, and many of our communities happen to fall into the trap of poor road safety and poor road rules that are used. The laws must be the laws that govern this country, that governs this society, and therefore I do support this motion, and I really want to see that this motion has seen the books of enacting the acts on it. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. The Honorable Jared, have you spoken? Very well. We shall then have the member for Njoro. It doesn't matter. The speaker has got a choice to who can speak, and who will speak after the other one.
Thank you very much, Speaker, for actually protecting me. Thank you very much. I understand I don't want to say much, but...
The Honorable Member for Njoro, don't worry.
Thank
all
you.
of them, everybody will speak. Even 001 knows. We are so few here, we'll all speak.
The
Yes.
problem with the 001, Mr. Speaker, is sometimes even like speaking on behalf of women, but thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, let me start by congratulating my colleague, Mheshimiwa Honorable Osoro, for coming up with this motion that we need training to students and the peoples on road safety. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the motion because the first thing, Speaker, the secondary schools and the primary schools, it's where majority of the population is. And at the time we are training these students and the peoples in those respective institutions, Mr. Speaker, the first thing we are doing, we are preparing them to be cautious, to have information. And Mr. Speaker, we all know that information is power. When the students and the peoples are empowered on the road signs, when we prepare them psychologically at their stages, then we are preparing another informed nation, which of course guarantees even the nation in the future, it would be the basis of reduction of the accidents and the injuries we have seen in this country. Mr. Speaker, I won't forget to remind all of us that majority of us members of parliament, we have gone to very many barriers, and actually they are barriers caused through accidents. And sometimes we have gone to barriers where we have even buried young children in the process of crossing to go to schools. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, why I'm rising to support this motion, it's because I realize it is going to be a game changer in this country, that we shall have given a good platform to our children to be properly equipped, and also to raise a serious safety awareness and also the meaningless of the road signs in this country to our children. Also, Mr. Speaker, I will also support on the same basis of the trainings that also we need our drivers to have annual refreshment courses through their bosses so that they can also be cautious on how they drive in this country. And Mr. Speaker, I don't want to talk so much because my colleagues talked a lot, but we still emphasize that also our contractors who make these roads nationally, they must be very cautious to make sure that nearby any school, may it be primary, may it be secondary, may it be a college, we need visible bumps, and we also need clear signs on our roads. And Mr. Speaker, when we take these precautions, we are actually going to make the country grow more, because we shall have minimized a lot of losses in this country. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I was just rising to support that idea that when we train our students and our peoples in relation to roads safety, we are giving good information, we are equipping our children, and out of that, Mr. Speaker, we are also sure that in the future we shall be getting students who are fully equipped when they were young. And as I lastly finish, Mr. Speaker, I shall finish by saying, actually, when we train them, when they get information, it will be mtoto muleavyo ndivyo akuavyo. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for that moment.
The member for Siaya.
Help me here. What do I press? It's okay. You're okay. I'm okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I'd like to add my voice to this very important bill on road safety. I think, as it has already been said, education is power. It gives you information and it gives you skills, and you know how to use it, whatever you are being educated on very effectively. It is important that we train our students, both primary and secondary, and even higher level, on road safety, because we know the consequences of bad use of the roads. It's not only accidents that cause death, but also people get maimed for life. We also know that people incur huge medical bills, and we know again that it is traumatizing. The family goes through trauma as they treat their sick children in hospital that has been caused by accidents. When we train young people on road safety, we are actually providing safety to them so that they can take responsibility on how to cross the road or how to allow others to use the road, because the road that is used, it is not only for students but also drivers. So they will know their rights to cross the roads. They will know their rights at what time to use the road safety. It is for this reason that I believe that so many lives will be saved once training takes place. It's not only our students at primary level, but also adults in secondary school. But I would wish that we add university students and the public members of the society, because when a little child is crossing the road and is hit by a vehicle, it's an adult who's driving that has hit that child. So we also need to train the public, and our drivers must still be educated on road safety. And it's not just driving a vehicle. It's just knowing the rules of the roads. When do you cross? When do you wait for a car to pass by? And all that. These are very important. And as we train young people and coming up with good curriculum for training, even those who make roads, those who construct roads, must give proper signs on what the danger zones, where the bumps are. So many times, I myself have hit my car so badly on a bump that it's not visible, simply because it's not marked. There is also dangerous corners. Nobody gives any signs to this. So sign makers or those road constructors must obey, or must at least educate people on where it's dangerous, where is the rivers, where are the bumps, where are the sharp corners, so that people start avoiding them a little bit earlier. Instructions, give people information as to where the danger zones are. I see many little children holding each other's hand as they cross the road, and they run without looking this side and that side. That is also an indication that the children are not aware of when to cross the road. They think that by running, they are escaping the vehicles that are coming by. Then they meet the vehicles head on, and then they get crushed. That is the reason why education is a power. Education is key to empowerment. The training is necessary, and I support this because of the consequences that are so dangerous, that are traumatizing, that are very, very expensive, and also very easy to address. Once education is done, we can be sure that we are addressing the death rate caused by road accidents to become lesser or much fewer, so that we do not have too many road accidents as we move on with our lives. Lastly, I just want to say that the bit about examination is interesting. It's a good point. It's an examinable curriculum, but there's also the practical part of it. I don't know, it will be interesting. I'm a teacher myself, and I'd like to be part of that curriculum making and ensuring that that curriculum, the training curriculum, is examinable, not only theoretically, but also practically. How can children know road signs or safe driving at a practical level, as we propose here? Otherwise, this is a very good bill. I want to support the person who has brought it in, and I support it. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
The Honorable Sophia Noor, member for Ijara.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to contribute to this very important motion on safety on our roads. Mr. Speaker, we all know the kind of problems our people have faced on roads, the kind of terrible accidents that have happened in this country. We have lost a lot of human resources on our roads. And we have invested so much on our human resource, but unfortunately, day in, day out, we have an accident that gives terrible impact to the society. Mr. Speaker, just recently,
that great road. I don't know how far that has gone to improve the transport system on that wonderful road. Maybe one of these days, the Committee of Transport will see it fit to inform this House what that line that was drawn on that road, its purpose was, and at what cost to the people of Kenya. The member for Keyo South, the Honorable Rono.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the motion by my brother Osoro about the development of an implementation of curriculum for training students and pupils on road safety. Mr. Speaker, I don't even think it should only be for particular students. It should go wider. Maybe we should even reach the secondary, the university, and even the public. Because road accidents is causing mayhem. It's causing hell in families. It's causing economic sabotage. If you take, for example, as you have seen, the mover saying that it has costed the economy over 300 billion. It's true, Honorable Speaker. In fact, it may be more than 300 billion. We have the motorcycles also, Mr. Speaker. Motorcycles are causing mayhem on the roads. In fact, they cross pavements. I don't know how this curriculum should be actually structured so that it includes the issues of motorcycles. Because you may be walking on the pavement only for a motorcycle to come crashing you, and you were right in where you are supposed to be. So no matter how we take this curriculum, the motorcyclist must also be educated so that it doesn't move along the pavements. We need to maybe get lanes for motorcycles, just like we want to bring in the rapid transport system in cities. Also, Mr. Speaker, sir, we have the issues of policies of transport. The rapid transport system that is supposed or is set to be introduced in cities in Kenya, and more particularly Nairobi. When this is introduced, it should also be inculcated in this curriculum, so that when this curriculum is given out to students, it should be all inclusive. Just as I have said, the issues of motorcycles, we need helmets for those motorcycles. It must be actually compulsory for every motorcyclist and the passenger to have the helmets. As I have said, I support this motion, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I request that we actually implement it. We have been talking about it. We have heard about these issues of bringing in improvement in support in transport system, improvement in road safety, but we hardly implement. We only talk. We need to talk and implement, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Very well. The Honorable Member for Kaspul, Kabondo, the Honorable Ivo Bar. It's Kabondo Kaspul? Kabondo Kaspul, the Honorable Ivo Bar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also contribute to the motion, and I stand to join my colleagues to support. Mr. Speaker, this motion is timely, and we can't understate. From the statistics that we have seen are worrying of people who have lost their lives through carelessness on the roads and the accidents that we have had over the years. Mr. Speaker, it is not because we do not have rules and regulations that govern the use of roads or traffic rules, but it's because we have ignored as a people that we do not obey the rules and regulations that are in place today. Mr. Speaker, first and foremost, even as we do this in schools, that we must ensure that Kenyans start obeying the rules and regulations, and the law enforcers enforce the rules that are in existence as we go forward. Mr. Speaker, we have, even within our families, people who have been in accidents and have been maimed for life. We know the cost of taking care of some of these medical bills, not just to the individuals, but also to the government as a whole. For people in the public hospitals, it is enormous. And this is something that can be saved and used for other purposes. Mr. Speaker, if you look at now the curriculum that is being proposed, the development and implementation, and it's key, the word implementation is key here, that yes, we have developed a lot of policies or curriculums, and they need to be implemented for us to derive some benefit from them. Mr. Speaker, if you look at some of the reasons for some of these accidents, it's unfortunate, because we have seen that maybe at what point do I cross the road? And people have been killed because they were crossing the roads at the wrong point. Issues of why should people getting into crowded buses and crowded matatus, people not using the seat belts. How many times have we heard that the people who died in a matatu were those who did not have the seat belts, and the ones who survived had the seat belts on? It's been there, and we have had it, and yet it's not being adhered to. Mr. Speaker, as we do this, it's not, we have kind of given up on the adults, but I believe that if we start inculcating this on the young people at an early age, they will grow up to be responsible citizens who are able to obey the rules and regulations. So I support, and I say that it's coming at the right time. As to whether it's going to be examinable or not, that is a debate for another day, I believe. But what we have seen over the years is subjects, I have been in the publishing industry, subjects that are not examinable, people don't take seriously. So maybe it should be examinable. And people are given grades for that. And as I said, they will grow up to be responsible citizens who will be able to obey rules and regulations that are in force at that time. Thank you very much, and again, I support Asante Sana.
Brian, the Honorable Osoro, the time has now reached for you to reply. And I understand you wish to donate some of your time to the members who have not spoken and were keen to speak to this. So you may indicate how many members and how many minutes you wish to donate to those members.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know how you understood that, but it's true to that fact.
I am a very perceptive person.
I just wish to donate only 2 minutes per member, and there are only 2 members. I'll start with Honorable Richard Tongi.
No, you have to list out both of them. That is the Honorable Richard Tongi, 2 minutes, and the member for Lamu East.
Yes, member for Lamu East, 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Very well. So you have a balance of, you will have a balance of about 6 minutes. The Honorable Tongi, your 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Osoro, for such an innovative idea. Mr. Speaker, Kenyans must have come to a point where we are going to do things not just for the police, but we do it for posterity. We do it because it's a good practice. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the practice on our roads, our children or our the consumers of our transport, they're doing security, they're using security features like the safety belt or the helmet because they know there's a policeman ahead. And that should not be the way to do things, Mr. Speaker. I think we need to inculcate a value in our people's mind to appreciate that the security is their concern, it's their priority number one, and not because we are doing it for the policemen, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm for the proposal that we have to start a curriculum where we are going to train security features, transport security features, right from high school, to primary possible, to college level, so that those who opt to take up transport, driving as a career, they will be able to use, go in for a refresher course and hone up their skills, Mr. Speaker. Because the way it's done now is that driving is left for school dropouts, is left for those people who cannot make it in education, and that is not the way to do it, because, Mr. Speaker, these are the people carrying people's lives. Imagine a driver who is carrying more than 60 people passengers in a bus, and this is a guy who was dropped out of school, Mr. Speaker. His level of judgment, his way of making decisions, Mr. Speaker, is impaired already. But if we had these people training right from high school, training to the college level, Mr. Speaker, or even in primary school as well, Mr. Speaker, these people will be better prepared to serve Kenyans a lot better in a way of, in ways of transporting, in ways of making better decisions the road usage, and because the road is shared by all of us. There will be pedestrian walking, Mr. Speaker. There will be the motorbike. There will be a motorcycle. There will be passes and all manner of
the Honorable
transport means,
Tongi,
Mr. Speaker.
your 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Very well. The Honorable Member for Amu East.
Mheshimiwa Spika, ni Lamu East, sio Amu. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi kwanza ningependa kumpongeza Mheshimiwa Osoro kuleta mswada huu hapa bungeni. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa kweli swala la barabara ni swala nyeti sana. Tunazungumzia uchumi mzima wa nchi. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa masikitiko makubwa, barabara zetu za Kenya kwanza, kabla hatujaingia katika swala namna tutakavyowafundisha vijana wetu wakiwa mashule katika masala ya barabara. Barabara za Kenya, ukienda na barabara za nchi nyingine, unapata barabara ziko tofauti Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa maana hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, hata mtu unapomfundisha kuhusiana masala ya barabara, anapata zile barabara anavyofundishwa na anavyokwenda kuziona ni tofauti Mheshimiwa Spika. Kitu muhimu Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi ningependa bunge hili kwanza, serikali kupitia kwa wizara ihakikishe ya kwamba barabara zetu Mheshimiwa Spika zimejengwa kulingana na mwelekeo na mwongozo unaotakikana wa kisasa Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa sababu utapata yale mambo mengi ambayo yanahitajika barabara iwe nao Mheshimiwa Spika. Utapata kwamba ni udhaifu mkubwa na ni makosa makubwa yanapatikana katika barabara zetu Mheshimiwa Spika. Ndiposa matatizo kama haya Mheshimiwa Spika, utapata ya kwamba ajali nyingi na matatizo mingi yanapatikana kwa sababu ya barabara zetu za kutokuwa na sheria za kisawasawa na zitakuwa na mwongozo wa kisawasawa. Mheshimiwa Spika, ama swala la vijana kufundishwa kuhusiana na masala ya usalama wa barabara wakiwa mashuleni ni jambo ambalo ni muhimu Mheshimiwa Spika, na ni jambo ambalo lahitaji kuangaziwa pakubwa. Kwa sababu Mheshimiwa Spika, kama nilivyosema, barabara ni katika uchumi wetu ambao unatumika hapa nchini. Ni kwamba unapotembea mahali popote katika nchi hii, lazima utatembea katika barabara zetu. Na vijana hawa wanapokuwa mashule ni muhimu wafundishwe, kwa sababu waelewe namna ya barabara zetu zilivyo na namna wanavyotakikana kutembea katika barabara zetu wanapokuwa ni wadogo na hata watakapokuwa wakubwa Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa sababu Mheshimiwa Spika, utakubaliana na mimi ya kwamba leo vijana wengi, watoto wadogo wakiwa katika shule za chekechea, shule za primary, ni kwamba vijana wengi wanatumia hizi barabara kwenda mashule, na utapata ya kwamba ikiwa vijana hawa hawatokuwa na elimu ama na ujuzi kamili kuhusu barabara hizi, inakuwa ni matatizo, na matatizo mengi yanaweza kuchepuka Mheshimiwa Spika. Ndiposa itakuwa vema vijana hawa wakiwa watakuwa wana ule ujuzi na uelewaji kuhusu barabara zetu, ni jambo ambalo litaweza kusaidia pakubwa Mheshimiwa Spika, na kuweza kupunguza maafa mengi ambayo yanapatikana Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa haya machache, asante.
Vema sana mjumbe wa Lamu East. Mheshimiwa Osoro, utamalizia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I must say that I'm very much perturbed by the support that the honorable members have given and the energy they've shown in this very important motion. Mr. Speaker, you'll notice that several matters have been raised because we clearly have a challenge in our country. We contribute a lot to funerals that arise upon through accidents. We pay a lot of hospital bills by patients who are born out of accidents, or who, of course, through incidents of accidents. And Mr. Speaker, it's about time that we really have a national dialogue in regard to accidents and in regard to road safety. Mr. Speaker, I do not really understand, when we were in school, if you notice, you'll remember that we learned about the parts of insects. You know, we learned about some things. I'm not really trying to undermine our education system, but we learned on things like bands and banners in high school. I'm trying to find where I can particularly use the parts of an insect, the head, thorax, and abdomen, in my real life. And it was very serious and examinable. And we left very important issues like the driving and road safety. So it's about time we make this thing serious, that we have a discussion on how we can have road safety as a of our curriculum that is examinable, that our primary school kids go through.
The Honorable Osoro, you are saying you did not find any use in the understanding of
parts of an
insects and the work of insects on this God's earth.
I am exactly the head, thorax, abdomen, and all those things. I do not understand why.
The Honorable Osoro, for your own education, I just want to tell you that that was the most important thing that you ever learned. And I want to inform you, if you didn't know, that today, actually, if the human race today is set on destroying bees on this earth, and if we remove bees from this earth, life will be impossible for you and me to live. Those insects are very important.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I stand guided on that. I am not saying that learning about insects is hard, but going to the extent of learning about the parts of an insect, where the legs are located, the thorax and the abdomen, that is the subject that I'm raising. That is, I'm wondering why we couldn't learn the parts of a vehicle, where the pedal is placed, because we use that one daily. And for me, Mr. Speaker, if we can be able to have that one as part of our curriculum, that we are learning about the parts of the insect, then it's also important for us to have the parts of the vehicles and the parts of a vehicle, or very important things about the vehicle also examinable, just like the parts of an insect. I don't really mean to undermine the lessons that we learned, Honorable Speaker. So in response, Mr. Speaker, it's clear from the mood of the House and from the members who've spoken that it's important for us to have this discussion and support our education, road safety education curriculum. Mr. Speaker, last week alone, in Nyamira County, we lost 3 students out of road carnage, because for them, putting on helmets while riding on a motorbike is for the police, and that is actually the perception that is across the board, that I put on my safety belt because the police will stop the vehicle. I'll put on my helmet because the police will stop us, or perhaps even the reflectors.
The government need to tackle is the agricultural subsidy. Mr. Speaker, if the country has food, I think the problems with its people will be minimized. Instead of importing food like maize and other foodstuff from other countries, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, this will reduce the cost of agricultural activities, Mr. Speaker, more in particular of food in the country, Mr. Speaker, that will enable us not to import food, to import maize from Mexico or our neighboring countries, Mr. Speaker, like Uganda. Mr. Speaker, the government should also invest and utilize the productivity sectors, Mr. Speaker, such as Chuakali. Chuakali, Mr. Speaker, employs millions of our youth. And Mr. Speaker, if the government invests a lot in Chuakali, Mr. Speaker, I think this country will have very little to, our factories, industries will not collapse. Because as we speak, Mr. Speaker, many industries, Mr. Speaker, in these countries has collapsed, like sugar companies, Mr. Speaker, the giant Mumias sugar, Mr. Speaker, has collapsed.
The Honorable Aluke, sorry to interrupt you, but we have reached 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We'll have to interrupt you and inform you that you still have 13 minutes to move at the next sitting when this matter will be set down for hearing. Your motion will have a balance of 2 hours, 53 minutes. So you will kindly allow us to stop there at this time. Honorable members.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The time being 1 p.m., this House stands adjourned till today, Wednesday, 19th June 2019 at 2:30 p.m.